Here, but Eric has an infectious personality, and true to the Heiden method, he prepares in his own relaxed way to face the clock and the pain.
Yes, it is the race of truth. And the look of concentration etched on their faces tells you the importance of these final seconds in the start house. Maybe it's concentration, and maybe it's fear. Because when the moment draws nearer to meet the watch, the anticipation breeds a cold sweat. The athletes blast out of the start house, and then it's a journey alone, a sprint, contre la montre, against the watch. Behind each rider, a team support car rolls out, packed with spare parts, even a spare bike. The race to stop time has turned bike racers into high-tech projectiles, aerodynamic helmets, and solid moon wheels to escape wind drag. The Tour de France cannot be won alone, but it's only fitting that the first race end that way, with the sound of the wind and the crowd blasting into your ears. At the finish line, 5 minutes of work can be time well spent, or it can leave you deep in a hole with 22 more days of riding ahead. In a race decided on overall elapsed time, this is what it's all about. 24-year-old American Andy Hampsten in the start house, ready to pedal the first strokes in his inaugural Tour de France.
1, 2, stop.
Hampsten rides on the French La Viclaire team that includes American Greg LeMond and Frenchman Bernard Hinault. And he is part of the American invasion in this year's Tour de France bike race. Not more than 1 month ago, it was Hampsten who won the prestigious Tour of Switzerland. The frail-looking professor's son from North Dakota has been compared in most every way to Bernard Hinault himself. Like Hinault, Hampsten knows how to win time trials, as he did in that Swiss race. Making history is something in which Eric Heiden has become an expert. The Olympic gold medal speed skater used to train on the bike in the off-season. Last year, he trained his way to a win in the U.S. Pro Cycling Championship. Heiden is also riding in his first Tour de France and on the first American team in the Tour. Heiden plays beat the clock now in a race he helped cover with us last year.
3 years ago, Belgium's Eric van der Arden won a Tour prologue in another Paris suburb. But since then, the rising star has not always shone so brightly. Still only 24, he rides with a vengeance. And when he gets to the finish, for the moment at least, he'll have the fastest time. There's a new star now, and Andy Hampsten, using all the latest technology in bicycle design, aims to win, joining a remarkable first year in Europe. Hungry for stardom, LeMond and Hinault may soon have another winner on the team. No longer pensive, Eric Heiden grimaces at the taste of his hors d'oeuvre. The big ex-skater rides a regular bike, but he's fitted a carbon fibre rear wheel, which helps him to pedal a higher gear. Hopefully go a little faster. Hampsten finishes gulping air, the sign of full effort. Too slow to beat van der Arden. Eric's turn next, and he too fails, but a time much faster than Hampsten's, which should make him feel good for the weeks that lie ahead. Starting behind the Americans, Thierry Marie, a 23 years old from Normandy, catches and passes another rider who started a minute ahead. The Frenchman, one of Laurent Fignon's protégés on his team, continues an inspired ride and responds to cheers. Marie sets the time for those to follow.
Oh man, that was hard. It reminded me of skating 5,000 meters, you know. Go out there and start relatively easy, but even the easy efforts, when it starts to get to be the last kilometer or so, are really hard on you. It's hard to keep the gear rolling, you know.
fact is, though, you had an excellent time. What about the rest of the tour now? Do you feel in good shape for it?
Well, it's definitely builds a lot of confidence when you can start out well, but we haven't raced in Europe for a couple months now, and tomorrow's race is going to be a little bit crazy. It's a short one, and it's going to be fast. Hope I survive through that, but once the road stages start, I think that's the time when we're going to be able to tell whether we've trained hard enough or not for this race.
It's time for the top guns in the Tour de France to take their places center stage. Greg LeMond. It is LeMond who, having finished second last year, has the opportunity and the responsibility of winning this year's Tour de France. The American riding for La Viclaire has taken a beating in the press for his inability to win major races, and today pedals this year's time trial like a man possessed. Twice before, Frenchman Laurent Fignon has conquered the Tour de France, but his injury last year kept him from defending his title. Now, the 26-year-old prepares for his race with the watch. Becoming your team's best rider means the other 9 members will work to keep you up front in the Tour de France. Last year, Bernard Hinault took 20 seconds out of Greg LeMond in the first race, and it set the tone for the rest of the Tour. With men like Andy Hampsten and Hinault on his team, a rider like Greg has reason to lift the tempo now. Fignon has left the start house, beginning the first phase of a journey that will test his knees for a full month, over 2,500 miles. The honor of starting last and in the yellow jersey, it's reserved for Bernard Hinault, the defending champion and 5-time winner of the Tour de France. Greg LeMond is still pedaling like a madman. And wasn't it just 1 year ago when LeMond was called upon in the mountains to help team leader Hinault win his 5th Tour de France? The finish line now in sight for last year's second-place finisher, Greg LeMond. LeMond beat Andy Hampsten's time with that performance, but his teammate and France's superhero still to come. And the time trial is Bernard Hinault's specialty. And if the Frenchman takes the lead here, will he really toss away a chance at a record 6th win? Up ahead, Laurent Fignon finishes strong. And with Hinault still to come, what's on the mind of the American Greg LeMond? Greg, you had a good time. How important is it for you at this point to be leading the La Viclaire team?
It's only important to kind of set the tone of the team that, you know, I'm the strongest and I'll be the strongest for the whole 3 weeks. And, you know, it's important. Last year I lost 15, 20 seconds, you know, in the first prologue, which he's not finished yet, but I don't think he'll do much better of a time than you never know. He knows sometimes comes out of woodwork and just explodes. But I'm hoping that at least to be equal time. If he beats me by a couple of seconds, it still doesn't mean anything in the sense that he didn't take 20 seconds out of me. But it'd be nice that I'm in the lead of the team.
5 times before, Bernard Hinault has won the prologue, and now surrounded by a horde of cameramen on motorbikes, it's clear that Hinault will end the day's racing without a 6th victory. But this performance put Hinault 2 seconds ahead of his La Viclaire teammate Greg LeMond. The standings after day 1, Thierry Marie, a time trial specialist, in first place, and a key man on Laurent Fignon's team, which could make things very interesting. Eric Heiden, his first Tour de France, only 12 seconds back. In a race that had figured to be a showdown, all of the top riders were very close. The prologue winner, Thierry Marie, not on the wanted list of any of the top riders, but in yellow, at least for now. And what of Bernard Hinault?
Alex Steeder is now a man with a mission. The determined 25-year-old who used to be one of Canada's greatest track pursuit riders was now pursuing the greatest goal of his life, the Maillot Jaune in the Tour de France. And even with a lead of almost 2 minutes, he knows enough not to allow himself the luxury of thinking what might be. from different teams combine against Steeder, and his lead begins to tumble. The chase is inspired by Phil Anderson in blue, the Australian who was fifth a year ago. Steeder's team car tells him to get up. All is not lost yet, but maintaining 30 miles an hour is beginning to tell, and the vision of a yellow jersey today might just be an illusion after all. The people of Paris are being treated to a strange happening. A Canadian being chased by an Australian, a Dutchman, a Frenchman, and two Belgians. Phil Anderson, called the Kangaroo by the French, was here to prove he might again be a challenger for this Tour de France. He spent most of the season injured. This unexpected freedom from the pack inspires the chase. There's still light at the end of the tunnel, because today along the route there are catch sprints, places where the first rider wins a bonus of 12 seconds. Now his long attack makes sense. 12 seconds down overnight, Steeder's already won one. That makes him even. So the chasers eat into the Canadian's lead. Steeder knows if he can win just one more sprint, even if they catch him, he still could win the yellow jersey. The catch sprint banner stretching across the road is no mirage, and Steeder races for it. I wonder if even the knowledgeable French understand what they are witnessing. Another 12 seconds in the bag, and if he's caught now, this is time he cannot lose. Alex Steeder is now poised to take the yellow jersey in the Tour de France. The American team is doing the impossible. Behind, the chasing pack of 204 riders begin at last to bare their teeth. Time is running out for Thierry Marie, who began in yellow this morning. Now there's a new name for the French to pronounce. They say Steeder. But hopes of a first Canadian stage victory take a setback when the five chasers led by Paul Deshaw from Belgium catch up. The man at the back, Phil Anderson, another member of the Commonwealth, has been responsible for the capture of the Canadian. And with the main field still behind by 30 seconds, all is not yet lost. Anderson's gesture here is friendly. Steeder has earned respect. No more will the field in the Tour de France see the American team as a novelty. Not when one of them has earned the yellow jersey of leadership.
At the line, three of Steeder's pursuers finished before him. And although the Canadian was denied a win in the day's race, finishing fifth, he had done something far more damaging. Steeder had completed a good day's work while out on his breakaway ahead of the pack. Being first through all those sprints earned him valuable time bonuses. And as the rest of the pack crossed the line pretty much together, Steeder became the man of the hour. And it's clear by this picture that Steeder was not yet aware of what he had done. The Canadian was now leading the Tour de France. So the standings after two races. Alex Steeder was not more than 30 seconds ahead of the top athletes, but he had done some damage to their egos. And so it was yesterday that the Canadian, riding on America's team, became the first North American to wear the golden fleece. It was an outrageous move on Steeder's part, but one that certainly paid off. Only the third Canadian ever to ride in the Tour de France. It was a big day for Steeder, who was in no hurry at all to leave the podium. And just as big a day for the world's press who were recording it. Some said Steeder and his 7-11 American team were not even qualified to be here at the Tour. Team manager Jim Ochowicz put the win into perspective.
I mean, this is like winning the Super Bowl for us. It's the biggest thing that we've ever done. It's the biggest thing that's ever happened to America.